What's the most evil thing you ever did or experienced? As a kid in the library, I saw one boy taking a single puzzle piece from every puzzle they had. I went to Lithuania on vacation. I'm from Denmark, and I usually don't give beggars anything. In my country, they can go to the authorities for help, no need to bother people in public. I did the same in Lithuania and saw beggars that were missing a leg or two, but it was clear that they were just hiding them. One day, I had a meal at McDonald's. I ate outside, but it was pretty cold, so I was the only one. Then this beggar comes by and points at my food. Apparently, he wanted it. He didn't speak English, and I kept saying go away, so I could eat my Big Mac. Finally, he leaves, and at that moment, I realized that he didn't want my food. All he wanted was the pickles that I had taken out of my Big Mac because I hate them. He was so desperate, and all he wanted was my leftovers. Of course, he could have them. I felt so bad and got up immediately to help him. At that point, I wanted to buy him anything he wanted from McDonald's. Anything. But he was gone. It could only have been 10-15 seconds. But I couldn't find him. That was more than 10 years ago, and I still feel bad for the guy. I used to work in a pet shop. We used to sell mostly dog and cat toys and treats, etc., but had a lot of exotic pets too, and different types of feed and bedding. This old man came in one day and asked me for chicken feet, a common request from dog owners. So I handed a kilo bag of chicken feet, and he stood there staring in horror at the see-through bag in his hands. Turns out he said chicken feed for his dearly loved chickens. I once went into a bathroom in high school where there was a trail of blood and shit leading from one stall to the next. With every single stall, some CNT shat and bled a little in every toilet. If my shits can't be pleasant, then neither can anyone's. Well, I don't know if this was technically evil, but I was about 12. It was Easter time, and I was dyeing and decorating eggs. My brother was being an ass to me, so I took a half dozen unboiled eggs, decorated them, put his name on them, and waited for the surprise. I stole hockey cards from my grade 4 teacher's desk and planted them in her ex-friend's desk to frame him. I admitted guilty when the teacher threatened to have the police fingerprint all of us. Kids are stupid, haha. See, someone set off the fire alarm in high school and lied. They threatened to fingerprint everyone and find out who it was. It was ages ago, and I don't know what ACC happened afterwards, so I guess someone owned up. But like, how does this work? Or is it just a threat? Mine was actually recently, but it was kinda accidental. I work in retail and we have an employee bathroom, but sometimes we let other people use it if they have kids who are about to piss their pants in that moment, or someone who physically disabled, or an elderly person. It was a really busy day and this guy came in with crutches and asks to use the bathroom. I get people coming all the time to use our bathroom, and being the busy day that it was, I just gave him the typical response of no, I'm sorry, the closest bathroom is across the street. And as he's crossing the street with snow falling and ice all over the ground, it dawned on me that he had crutches and he was struggling to cross the street. I felt awful, and now that I'm thinking about it, this wasn't evil, I guess, because it was accidental. I don't know, I just felt awful about it, and I needed to get that off my chest. I'm sorry, crutches guy. My drug addicted brother told my mom his son was dying, and he needed money for emergency treatment. A week later he said his son was dead. He was in mourning, and he needed money for the funeral. My parents took all of my college education fund and gave it to him. My mother cried for days. A week later, birth mom calls and asks if we'd like to arrange a visit. She had no idea what my mom means by emergency treatment, and obvious my nephew is fine. A year later he gets into a fist fight with my dad, and my mom runs into the kitchen to grab a knife. As in her hysteria she thinks that if she kills herself they'll stop fighting. My sister and I managed to hold her back, but we were fairly young at the time, 11 and 13 or so. He finally went to jail, ironically for a crime he was actually innocent of, and my mom tried to walk out into oncoming traffic in a fit of hopelessness. 10 years later he corners my mom in a spot in the house. Says he'll kill her and himself if she doesn't hand over pills to him. I remember the screams as he left, holding her while she was shaking in pure terror. He was back 2 days later. So I told my mom I was either going homeless or he was never coming back. Luckily I wasn't homeless for long. My mom was suffering from pneumonia towards the end of her life and was hospitalized briefly. When she was discharged they gave her a prescription for a heavy-duty cough syrup with codeine in it to help her deal with the pain. Weeks went by and she seemed to be getting worse, not better, and she complained that her medicine seemed to be working less and less. We took the medicine to the pharmacy. When they tested it, it turned out to be mostly water. Her live-in boyfriend had been drinking it himself to get high and replacing it with water, leaving the person with pneumonia to suffer. She ended up being hospitalized a second time when it relapsed. Bullied out of a job I loved. Evil multiply 2. My brother is very handy. His wife asked him to build a sewing room for her mother. My brother built it with no help and paid for everything himself. The sewing room was not a sewing room. It was an extra room for my brother's wife to live in. After she left him, she tricked him into building her a place to live after she left him. She also stayed with him until the exact amount of time in order for him to be legally, financially responsible for her first child from another man. Obviously evil. When I go to other people's houses I flip the toilet paper to the opposite direction. I took ketchup packets, folded them in half, and put them under the knobs of all the toilet seats in the school bathrooms. I put a label on a labelmaker at work. It just says labelmaker. In 8th grade my best friend moved from the US to New Zealand. I thought it would be funny if I joked around and emailed her posing as my mom that I had an accident at school and died. Yay. That was a dick move for sure, when she had been calling my parents' house while I was at school bawling her eyes out. Not most evil but something I remember from high school. Basically half the school voted for this overweight, awkward shy girl to be homecoming queen. Not in a nice way, as a joke. Very Carrie-esque. I'm actually very proud of myself that I went full Karen and went to the teacher in charge of the student committee and told her to shut that shit down. And she did. When I was about 7, 8 Yomi and my friend were throwing rocks in a pond. I jokingly said, well, wouldn't it be funny if I hit a duck? I threw one in the general direction of a duck minding his own business, but it actually landed on it. I cried for about an hour after that, saying how it didn't do anything bad to me, but I still hurt it, and how much of a bad person I was. Never again. If it makes you feel any better, ducks are kind of evil. I'm saying this is someone who has owned a pet ducks and been attacked by them. It was honestly kind of funny. You walked into the backyard, you would be chased by a duck. The only time you wouldn't be attacked is if you brought food or were opening up the chicken coop in the morning, in which case he would walk right next to you to make sure you did not do anything. I ate Nesquik cereal without milk. I didn't do evil thing. I'm an evil. I put it between slices of bread and eat them. Had shitty roommates in college. The day I moved out, I tossed squid and shrimp that I used as bait into the ventilation system, then turned the heat up as high as I could. It had to be at least 6 hours until they got home from class, and I'm sure the stench lingered for weeks. What did they do to deserve this? Trash the place, nearly burnt it down once while they were drunk, caused issues with the cops, etc. Probably 15 years ago, this girl who went to school with me got very angry at me because, unknowingly, I introduced my BFF at the time to someone she had a crush. They hit off and started to date, so I became the target of her rage. She posted photos of me and asked me in a forum that roasts people and bullies people online, and I lived a nightmare for a while. This was mid-2000s, so there was nothing I could do. My history teacher last year said, if you will ace the test I will bring a pig to school and kiss it, and the quiet kid in the back of the room said, don't bring your wife into this. I worked in a hotel and this young female partier was being super rude to everybody. She also had noise complaints and had to be asked to leave the lobby a couple of times. Well, she lost her phone, and I was working for Verizon at the time as well. I found the phone factory, reset it, used Verizon Cloud to restore it, but changed her lock code to my own. So everything on the phone looked like hers, but she couldn't get in. Lastly, I gave the phone back to her, which she responded by slamming the door in my face. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.